that there are a variety of different kind of levels of investment and combinations of use. You could roughly categorize organizations in three parts or three levels or categories, all of them equally useful and workable. Okay, this one's the first one. So many examples were there also about an organization having maybe one mobile phone collection tool, maybe Kobo Toolbox, as it was mentioned, and then manually downloading the data to a laptop or computer and utilizing Excel to then produce some diagrams or some results. And this could be working maybe only in one country and in one project. And there are many organizations that only have that one country and one project, and this could be very good for that purpose. Then there might be another organization that has also one tool in use, mobile phone data collection tool, but also is utilizing, for example, group data collection tools. That was also mentioned, for example, by Solidarisuus. And they might have several projects where this digital data collection takes place. And it could be that they already have something other than Excel, so a bit more automated visualization and analysis software. There's an example of Data Hero, and then they are publishing those results online regularly. And then thirdly, there could be an organization that has invested even more, so they have maybe multiple data collection tools, one open source, maybe one proprietary, and they have linked all the different kind of sources and tools to a cloud service, and then utilizing maybe more high-end business intelligence and visualization tools to spread the information. And it could be that this is used in multiple countries, in multiple projects. And then you could even go further, going to the fourth level, where maybe this is all systematized globally, and the whole international organization is using similar tools and similar practices across geographies and countries. And you could say that none of these is better than the other one. It just depends on your needs and your organization, which one is most suitable and appropriate. And it could be that the organization would like to start with the first level to try it out, and then later on move to the next one and the next one. So these are not strict categories, but just to show the variety here. So Vilja also mentioned plans on technology solutions portfolio that's kind of tailor-made for big glass. Tailor-made for plan. And now Fingo is soon publishing a similar kind of technology solutions portfolio aimed at a variety of different kind of organizations. So you can have a look at the draft version of it through the link here on the screen. And for example, as you can see on the kind of a screenshot taken in the top of the list, there is Kobo Toolbox, which is a free and open source digital data collection tool. And there are also on the almost last column, there are supporting video material. So there you can have a link to video trainings. And the latest one we found was from Norwegian Church Aid. And there's quite a good 22 small or short videos explaining step by step how to get started with the Kobo Toolbox. And obviously, it's possible for us to organize also online trainings on using certain tools, for example, Kobo Toolbox. But here you can have a quick start. Even today, just go to the solutions portfolio, click to the videos, and start training yourself on utilizing the free and open source of tool. If you want to have a look at a wider scale of different kind of tools, that's also possible. One option is to go to the Copernic Impact Tracker, and there's also the link here. Maybe Mika, if you can copy paste these links to the chat window, but you'll also have a copy of this presentation later on. Great. So here are a few recommendations on handbooks and guidelines on starting and utilizing digital data collection. The one that I would particularly recommend here to start with is the Handbook on Data Collection. You just can Google it. It's by AFRI Alliance and Akvo, and it's a very good handbook, starting from the design of the project all the way to the design of the surveys and choosing digital tools, then to analyzing the data, visualizing it, and taking it into action. So if there's one thing to start reading, go for this one. There are also many others that I've also presented, 2 others, but if you want a recommendation, go with this one. And so now the kind of the start with something to start experimenting, then I would recommend take the Kobo Toolbox because it's free, open source. Read the handbook on data collection that you'll find it here. And then for data analysis and visualization, use Excel because it works quite well. And once you have started with those ones, you can start building and seeing what else do you need. But with these tools, it's possible to start quickly without minimal budget and have some experimentation and experiences done. If you are more advanced already and you were inspired by the, for example, the presentation by Vilja, then go ahead, look at the digital data, the technology solutions portfolio for more tools and more videos. Yes, very good.
Very good. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Like I said, my name is Tomi Nummi. I come from Accenture Development Partnerships, which is a kind of social business within the management and technology consulting company Accenture. Accenture Development Partnerships focuses on working with different organizations in the international development sector, providing support in different parts of these organizations' operations. And most lately, we've been working a lot around digital transformation. And normally the 2 hottest topics among these organizations are digital fundraising and then topics related to analytics and data-driven management. So during the past 3 years or so, we've been working with a number of organizations in this data-driven management space on different type of topics. And I'll what my idea here was to give a bit of a introduction to the framework that we are using, what we understand by data-driven management, and then also give some examples on the go and some list some best practices that what we have found are kind of valuable when planning how to adopt these tools and processes in your kind of in the programmatic work or other parts of your operations. But first, a quick intro to what we mean by data-driven management, and here you see two kind of hierarchies or life cycles. First, about the data. So how in the data-driven management process, how you kind of basically refine what starts on the data collection phase. If you look at the bottom of the screen, as a raw data, the individual data points that you are gathering in surveys and questionnaires and so forth. And then when you validate and store the data, aggregate the data from different kind of responses together, then the data becomes information. And then on the third step, then when you start to look at the analyze the data, the information, and try to form your understanding of what the information tells you, then we start to talk about knowledge. And then after that, and I think this, as kind of further up in this hierarchy we come, the more difficult, but also the more important things come. And then the next, or the fourth step, is then the question how you use that knowledge that you have gained through the analysis phase, and how you are able to make informed decisions based on that knowledge, and how much you really use that knowledge versus a kind of other and how consistently you use that in your decision making. And then the final step is really to look at the phase where you, based on these decisions, how you implement these decisions into actually impactful actions. And only when you get that all the way here, then you have kind of utilized the full breadth and width of what the data-driven management can bring, so that you really then are using all the way from the raw data to the actions based on that data, which has become information, knowledge, and so forth on the during the process. And then many times we when we talk about data-driven management, this is actually the framework which tries to visualize all the different parts of the and or the capabilities that an organization, if not needs to develop, but at least to be aware of when we talk about data-driven management. And here we have divided this so that there are certain core capabilities that organizations should focus on when they think about data-driven management. And then there are a few other capabilities which at least you need to be aware of and which are supporting the core capabilities. So independent of whether you want to start incrementally focus on let's say single project or single program or single country, or try to do an organizational wide adoption, you need to at least focus on these 4 areas. So the first of all, the information and content management. So the basic layer is figure out how you collect the data, how you manage it, so that you can aggregate, store, validate that in a consistent and consistent manner. And then the second part is analytics. So how you what tools, processes, methods you use to analyze it, to make the data and information, turn it into knowledge. And then really the core parts are then that, okay, how you then use that knowledge in the decision making, and then how you turn those decisions into impactful actions. And I think the last steps are much less technology related. It's much more related then to your governance model, how you make decisions, and then the process is how you follow those decisions. And that's also something that you really need to consider and take into have, again, kind of a consistent way of doing to get the most benefits out of all the other activities that you've been doing before. And then quickly moving forward, what are then the supportive capabilities? There is, of course, the strategy level. If you want, especially if you want to do this consistently across the organization, you need to embed that to your strategy and vision. You need to at least be aware of that how you want to what sort of a role these things have in your organization. Do you have a specific, in a bigger organizations, do you have a specific team to drive these topics, or is it something that you want to spread competencies and capabilities that you want to spread evenly across the organization, so that every person working in the programmatics or in the communications, marketing, advocacy has the skills to do it. And then, of course, there's the layer of the tools and processes and skills to make this happen. And then finally, in the bottom, the governance, the sponsorship, that it's been kind of, and this relates very much to the last steps on the decision making and following up on the impactful actions. So so therefore you need to have the governance in place, or at least thought about how to do that. This is a fairly kind of robust framework, and like Mika introduced the different type of organizations. I mean, you shouldn't be kind of overwhelmed with the amount of work, or thinking that this is very difficult, or that you should be very knowledgeable, or you should have a kind of big resources to invest in something like that in order to get the benefits out of it. Not at all, but it's good to have in mind the bigger picture and what different parts are included in the overall framework. And many times when we work with organizations, we do a kind of a quick maturity assessment, checking that, okay, what is the current state, where this organization is, and what are the areas that they are most interested in, what they want to prioritize, where to start. And then kick off the first tests, pilots, and then gradually build on the capabilities in different parts of this framework. Here, the last slide I wanted to show you is just picking up a couple of best practices. What we have learned are kind of help to plan and develop these topics further. First, it's a bit what I already mentioned, is that really design for your organization. Think what is fit for purpose for your organization. What are the areas that you feel that where you would benefit most from data-driven management? Is the focus there really that you want to be consistent on how you gather the information, make sure that you have that layer well thought through, and you have or is it about the decision making, that okay, we have already the data collected, we have ways to analyze it, but we really are not utilizing the knowledge, and we are not able to consistently make decisions on and implement the actions. So think about what's good, and then also what's realistic in terms of the resources and investments you have. Many times when you get new tools and you figure out that it's actually quite easy to get information and manage a bigger loads of data, you end up gathering a lot, and sometimes without really thinking through that, what do you actually need? And there we when we look at a certain cases where we look at a certain project or certain process that an organization wants to gather information from, what we start with is to understand the actual process and the steps in that process where you want to gather information, and then also look into that, what really are the core data points and information that we want to know about. And then there is a reference to the impact assessment frameworks or logical frameworks, so forth. And then many times we realize that actually there's much less need for data gathering that we originally thought of, and there's plenty of kind of nice to know or good to know data, but actually the must-haves, that list is shorter. Third thing is to be consistent, so that there's a plenty of tools, there's a plenty of ways you can do the same thing, but when you have decided that this is the kind of a set of tools and our way of working, stick to that, see what it can do, and it helps to focus on the resources, helps to train the people, and makes life much easier when you have a limited kind of tool set, limited kind of hopefully a single way of working. And then at some point after you've gained experience on that, you start to see that, okay, maybe we should change that piece to something else, and then develop your tool set or way of working incrementally, but to be consistent helps you to move forward. I know that in some organizations where you work with partners, it's more difficult when the partners already have their own way of doing things, and maybe the global organization has their own way as well. So you need to manage that as well. Fourth thing is to design for your audiences. What I mean with this is that this is now the question of how you use the knowledge that you have. And I mean, there are Power BIs, these visualization tools. They are great. You can dig deep into the data and information, and there's so much you can spend kind of hours and hours just going through the data, especially if you are kind of yourself data driven and have an analytic mindset. But not all people are like that, and you have different audiences who just need a snapshot, or they need there are people who are much more interested in the narratives, in the stories, and therefore you need to figure out a way how you design your story and how you use the data and the knowledge so that it makes sense and it's engaging for different audiences. And then last thing is that I mean, the needs of different organizations, if I think about NGOs, it's actually pretty similar. You have you may have different programmatic focus. You have maybe a different strategies and so forth. But the basic steps in the operations are very much the same. So, and even though that the many of the tools and have become much more accessible also to NGOs lately, it's still a big investment, and I think the sector would benefit a lot from doing more together and developing tools and platforms to use together. So sharing economy would be a kind of a good thing to explore here as well.
Now we have the right screen. Thanks.
Okay.
So
good.
Off you go. Floor is yours, Vilja.
Okay, thank you, Mika, and thanks a lot for letting me share our experience on digital monitoring. I saw from the group exercise that there's actually quite a lot of experience in the group, so I'm very much looking forward to sharing experiences. I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to learn from each other. This will be also an example of collaboration with Accenture. So I will be building quite a lot on Tomi's presentation as well, and kind of giving our experience and kind of giving a concrete example of what these processes could look like and what it has taken from us, the kind of to do digital monitoring at Plan Finland. So hello everyone. This is me in the middle. I work at Plan International as a NEIL specialist, so a specialist in monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. And at Plan Finland in particular, which means that I'm not actually involved in project implementation as such, but we work with our teams in the country offices, provide technical support, and let our country teams who are experts in the field to do the actual implementation, and this applies also to monitoring. So I work mostly based in Finland, and then I closely collaborate with our colleagues in the country offices. So that's my role at Plan Finland. What digital monitoring means for us. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've managed to set up during the past couple of years, when we've really been focusing more on digitalizing our meal processes. It means that we have a set of digital data collection tools that we've selected and that we're kind of consistently using across one portfolio of projects. Mika was talking about the different categories of organizations, and I think Plan as a global organization, a federation of offices across the globe, is a hybrid between all the three, moving towards number 3, I think, with a more kind of consistent and harmonized approach, and in a process of developing and rolling out joint tools. Us at Plan Finland and the projects that we're supporting are kind of twofold, and I'll be talking about a bigger program that we have consisting of 5 projects where we actually had a bit more resources to build and test digital tools and much more than in some of the other projects in our portfolio. So in this one bigger program or portfolio of projects, we have a set of digital data collection tools that we've all kind of agreed on and that we focus on. On the left-hand side, you see a situation of a mobile data collection, a face-to-face interview taking place, and the answers are recorded using a mobile phone and a system called Survey CTO that we're currently using. And on the right-hand side, there is a photo of a group data collection session done using Ombea, which is this audio response system that we're using to collect information from groups. And I saw some others are also using that. So these are the 2 tools that we mainly support and use. And that comes also with a lot of supporting technology and equipment. I just wanted to kind of show you a glimpse of the reality, what this looks like in the field. So in addition to these 2 data collection tools, the actual data collection tools, you will need a bunch of different other supporting equipment, such as electricity for one, so that comes in the form of batteries or the solar media backpack that you see in the photo, projectors, chargers, etc. So in order to make all of this work, you will need to plan also these kinds of things, how to, for example, charge all the equipment during field data collection process. So this is how it can look like. We also have designed and put in place a process or a system to manage the data that comes in as automatically as possible. So this means that the data storage and transfer is automated to the extent possible by using something called Zapier to export the data from this mobile data collection app to SharePoint automatically. And from the Ombea group data collection system with a couple of manual steps into SharePoint, also where the data is securely stored and organized, and where we have access to it from multiple sides, so that this situation where data is stored in, for example, computers of individual colleagues, which is the case at least in our organization, sometimes the data gets easily lost. It's in people's computers, it's in emails, it's everywhere. So now we've kind of built a system where all data is located in a cloud storage space where multiple people have access to the data. And from SharePoint, the system that we're using for data visualization is automatically configured to kind of go in and take that data, and it transforms the data as well. So in the end, we have dashboards where the raw data has been transformed and kind of calculated automatically into indicators, and it's automatically visualized. So there's very little manual work involved in the process of data entry and managing, transferring, and transforming the data. And finally, I also already mentioned that we're using a BI software called Power BI to visualize the data that we collect, which gives us an easier access to the data and an opportunity to kind of explore and study the data in a much more easy way than before. I bet all of us are very familiar with, for example, long assessment reports, such as baseline reports, where you have 100 of pages of mainly text, maybe a couple of graphs or charts, but mainly text. And this is very inaccessible way of presenting data, and people lose interest easily. So the BI software brings in all the data in a format that is a bit more easy to comprehend for most of us. For the particular solutions and tools that we're using, you can go online to plan.fi/n/digital solutions portfolio, where you find details of all the equipment that we're using. And obviously, I'm also happy to answer any questions and share more detailed experiences of the tools if there's later on questions or an opportunity to actually talk a bit more about these. But for the interest of time, I need to move on, but you'll find more information from this website. I wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits and the opportunities of digital monitoring. Some of these have already realized at Plan Finland. Some of these were still waiting to kind of, to realize. So some of this is still a bit hypothetical, but much of this has already kind of taken place in our organizations, and we can really see the benefits in digitalizing monitoring processes. The first point is that when you spend less time managing data, this means that you have more time for more value-adding, creative, and innovative work. So namely, when less time is spent on data entry and kind of transferring and managing the data, we get to spend more time studying and interpreting the data and thinking what this actually means for us. So kind of what Tomi was talking about, turning the data into knowledge, into information, and then into knowledge, and finally into decisions that actually make a difference. So this gives us more time to do this kind of work. The data is more timely and it's less error prone. So when you kind of when you don't have the resource intensive data entry phase, and you don't have to kind of transform the data manually, you have it at your disposal right away. And this is something that we've also experienced. So we've managed to do data collection exercises so that we spend 3-4 days in the field collecting data, and then on the last day of that exercise, all of us who participated in data collection, we sit together and we start to look at the data that we collected. So it doesn't take, when everything's automated, it takes maybe seconds to have the data in your hands if everything works well. And this is really excellent. So when you're fresh from the field and when you're in a situation when you actually need the data right now, you have the opportunity to utilize the data very tightly. And when you minimize the manual steps or phases in the data management process, it becomes less error prone. Obviously, there's also bugs in the digital systems. There may be that you need to fix, but the chances for human errors, which are very common in this data collection processes, is minimized, which will save you time. Finally, one of the clear benefits is that there is better access to data for more people. And this is kind of a twofold issue which relates, one, to the data collection tools that we're using. So using Ombea in these group data collection sessions and having a tool that allows you to immediately visualize the results of the survey allows us to engage our stakeholders and the respondents in actually analyzing and interpreting the data. So it becomes much more participatory, the data analysis phase, and it makes giving feedback to communities that we work with very easy when you have this data kind of automatically visualized. So on the top of the page, on the right corner, you see a session. This is from one of our projects in Mozambique, where colleagues have finished doing a survey using Ombea, and they gather around with a group of women to talk about the results and what these mean and what could we kind of interpret and take away from the results. And this is really making the data that we collect much richer and making the process much more participatory and open. And the second point is that presenting data in a visual format really allows easier exploring. So we have colleagues who have access to the dashboard and the data is there, and it's easy to study, easy to use, it doesn't get lost, and we all have access to that. So that has been a really great benefit, for example, now during annual reporting. So what it has taken from us, or what it takes all the time to maintain these kind of systems or maintain this kind of a digital process. Digital monitoring requires continuous investment. You need to have equipment such as mobile phones, for example, or tablets. You'll need to pay licenses. Obviously, there's also free software, but when I'm talking about this system that we have, which is very much automated, this requires systems and software that actually costs. It's not a whole lot of money, but it's kind of a continuous investment into these licenses of programs that we use. It has taken investment into in-house expertise. It takes staff time from everyone. And it has taken investment into consultancy fees. So at the same time, when I say that there's a need for in-house expertise, or it has helped us to get where we are, I also think that not all the expertise needs to sit in-house, but this is a good opportunity to utilize external expertise and bring in consultants with very specific expertise on, for example, business intelligence systems, who can help set up these systems and who can at times help you maintain. So it has been for us at least a good investment. We have had in place a kind of multidisciplinary team and a very dedicated team to do this. We've had a core team that had consisted of me, so an M&E specialist, our specialist in technology and innovation, an in-house data scientist with extensive experience on the BI system or software that we're using, and a group or a team of consultants for technical support to help us set up this system. In addition, we've consulted the program staff at Plan Finland and at the country offices throughout the process of kind of setting up and testing and rolling out everything. So they've been heavily involved in the planning and testing phases. And we do have, for example, for each of the 5 projects that I'm now talking about, we have M&E specialists in the projects who, in addition to the project manager, own these processes and have helped to develop them and design them and to roll them out. So dedicated personnel for this particular process. Rollout has been especially resource intensive, and there's a need for continuous support. So this kind of multidisciplinary team you need to have in place for the setup especially, but also during the course of trying to make all this work. So it takes time and it takes people to really provide accurate support and make sure that everything works and kind of takes off in a way. I have 2 quotes here which I think kind of illustrate the system. So first one is vision and data are best friends. So it means that kind of along the lines what Tomi was also saying, that we need to be very careful in designing what kind of information and data we need. And for this purpose, we need everyone on board actually designing and planning for data collection and planning for the whole system, thinking about the different audiences that we have. And the second one is software does not update itself. So you will need continuous support with the technical and digital tools that you use. There's these small details that only experts know how to do, and it's been very essential, for example, to have this in-house data scientist who mainly works with other processes at Plan Finland, but to also support the program side. It takes a lot of iteration to get these things somehow right. And by this, I mean it takes time and it takes patience. We've been testing the system with colleagues in the country office who've been very curious and interested and supportive, but also very patient. There's all kinds of hiccups during the process. There's much learning to be done on digital tools, on all of it, but especially on digital tools. For example, you saw some of the dashboards that I showed previously. So we've now done 2 rounds of annual data collection for our outcome level monitoring. And this is a very extensive exercise of now in total of over 4,000 respondents during the 2 years, the 2 data collection exercises. And in kind of in between of these exercises, we realized that there was a misunderstanding between me and the colleagues who were responsible in configuring the dashboard. So kind of inserting the indicator calculations in the system. So in between of everything, we had to make some corrections, which actually changed the values that we got out of the system. So it's these kind of big in a way big mistakes that you can even make before you learn all the things that you need to check and what kind of quality assurance checks you need to run, and before me learn how to manage the systems and how to study the digital tools so that you can actually troubleshoot and you can understand what's inside and how they function. So it takes time and it takes a bit of mistakes, I think, as well. And that's when the learning happens. It can be a little bit embarrassing and it requires patience from colleagues, but probably a mandatory part of the process. And then finally, my final point is that it takes much more than technology to improve data-driven project management and monitoring for results. And Tomi was also talking about this. There's so you can use technology to gain the benefits that I was talking about, but you will need, or we have needed, a large number of people involved who still are doing the work. So you need to have enough personnel who are motivated and curious to do this kind of work and who have the necessary skills to do digital monitoring. You need to think about the process. So digitalizing a bad monitoring process does not necessarily make the process any better. And oftentimes the processes that we use for monitoring and reporting don't necessarily kind of right away transfer into a digital format. So you might have to rethink the way monitoring and reporting is done in order to kind of take the most advantage of the digital tools. And finally, the technologies and the systems, they will need the right kind of data in order to serve their purpose. So in order to make really good decisions and benefit from all the systems, you will need to have systematic and reliable and timely information on the results. So this is also something that needs to be kept in mind. And when all of this is kind of balanced, then you will then I feel like you can get the most out of the digital tools.
Thank you, Vilja. That was great. There are already some questions and comments here. Let's take a couple of them now. Sarah is asking that much of this appears to be quantitative data collection. Do the same programs work for qualitative data?
That's a good question. They do. The mobile data collection apps allow you to have open-ended questions, for example, that you can use to type in any data. You can record audio, you can take photos, and all this kind of data to be analyzed. Ombea allows you to have this kind of feedback, or how we've used that is to collect first the quantitative data using a survey, and then we come together in smaller groups into a kind of focus group discussion to talk about the results, and that's how we are able to combine quantitative with qualitative data when we talk about the survey results and the issues around the questions in general. And people get to comment on the survey results, but they also get to provide their own perceptions and opinions and kind of explain us how and why things are why they think that things are the way they are. And then in the dashboards that we use for data visualizations, there's some, for us still, we haven't managed to kind of work on that a lot. There's some opportunities to visualize qualitative data in Power BI, which is the data viz software that we're using, but it's a little bit limited at the moment.
If I may continue, Tomi, here, I think it's very important that you design. When you design the data collection, you design for both qualitative and quantitative data collection, so that later in the process, just like Vilja said, you can combine those, and you collect them so that you can really also afterwards kind of make the linkage so that this qualitative data relates to this quantitative data, and then you can, for example, create much more kind of better quality reports, and kind of we talk about data storytelling, about option on approaches where you combine these, so for different type of audiences, so it brings a much more holistic picture of what's being done and the impact achieved. But applying kind of these automatic analyzing tools for qualitative data, that is also possible, but it's normally those tools are kind of mainly developed for quantitative. But you could apply sentiment analysis, different type of kind of AI based solutions to analyze also qualitative data, but that's probably not where to start from, but super interesting.
Yeah,
Great.
I agree, Tomi. It's super interesting. Just let me add to that what we've done and decided is to kind of take this step by step. So we started with the quantitative, and we're kind of thinking of the time to bring in a more kind of extensive development work around the qualitative data collection, but it's still kind of it's still kind of waiting for phase 2 of this project, and it takes quite a lot of skill from the project staff in the field. So it's a lot about the other issues except the technology that